Part 2, Darryl. How you doing, artist in recovery? 5:17 in the morning, West Coast time. It's still Wednesday, the 25th of September, 2024. Part 2 in this madcap race of mine to drive you nuts. But in response to the video that you done this morning, so the part 1 was trying to express and identify, define, and now we're getting into portions that we still have to talk about. And sometimes it's not that easy talking about it to people personally and also in meeting halls. I've tried. It's not exactly the easiest damn thing. I've got people out there sometimes watching this. I don't advertise. I don't push people around to say, I need to talk about what's going on inside of me. But I put this out in the channels because I need something of a legacy and a barometer of how I'm doing. And whether or not I'm going off the deep end or not, this is my breadcrumbs. This is my story I'm telling about. So now we're dealing with the addiction again, Ari. Okay, so we're dealing with that one. So it wasn't easy for you to talk about this kid with the fentanyl crap. And yes, there was chit chat on both sides in the comment areas about this, whether or not it was the kid's um, decision or not. Probably did get talked in by a friend because maybe the friend didn't know how dangerous and deadly the stuff was until that person died. My channel deals with the diary of a griever named John Weaver, which means I deal with death on a constant basis. I deal with my own death a long time ago as a kid. I deal with the memories. I deal with the after effects. I deal with the flashbacks. I deal with losing people, people, pets, things on a constant basis. Growing up as a kid, I had lost a grandmother. I'd lost an aunt. I'd lost dogs. It's hard. As a teenager, from a kid to a teenager, it's rough dealing with it. And no one talks to you about it. I mean, you might have other people trying to put a hand on you and say, Are you all right, son? All you want to do is hit them in the head and say, No, I'm in pain. Deal with it. I have to deal with this pain. Leave me the hell alone. It's the usual reaction. Not wanting to deck the other person. You just want to be alone and you don't understand it. You don't want to deal with it. You just lost a person. How are you supposed to express the hurt and pain to others? Our natural reaction as animal creatures at this point, Darryl, is to hit. A wounded animal is a dangerous beast, they say, because the animal is dealing with pain and it's angry because he is triggered into this, both physically, mentally, and spiritually. Dealing with loss is one of those things that we deal with on a constant basis, that we manage to deal with rules, procedures. We deal with mental exercises. We deal with how we manage ourselves on the inside to compartmentalize, to shove the pain away and not deal with it as we're dealing with life. We're dealing with a survival mode. Sometimes we get to laugh, sometimes we smile, and at times we may get to cry our asses off. But we try to compartmentalize it and not take it out until we think we're absolutely ready. But the problem is there's so much that you could shove into that container before it starts leaking all over the place, and then think of it as the Van Norman Dam with cracks all over the place, and whoops, there comes the rush. All that stuff is welled up inside. All that stuff, it held back. Think of it as the Hoover Dam. Think of the Hoover Dam. How much full do you remember when the Hoover Dam was? Okay, large container full of water in it. But break the dam. Sufficient enough force down there. How much of that weight of water is going through a crack to where everything else gets to be crumbled? Say hello to us in the emotional and the spiritual. Because the physical wall is our physical body. We're trying to hold back that pressure as much as we can. We have spill gates. in a dam to allow the pressure to be relieved every so often and to get energy from it. How we're dealing with it, how we're physically, emotionally, and spiritually dealing with it. We're tapping into it. But if it gets too damn overloaded, our way of dealing with it is not enough. We try to do spillway to relieve the pressure in whatever kind of form or function we have. But sometimes it's just not enough, and we will crack and we will break. Why? Because it's inevitable. It happens. I don't care how many assurances I'll hear from other people saying that, oh, you're tough, you're tough. I was told that a long time ago. I had to be a tough kid. I dealt with a hell of a lot of physical pain. I dealt with knocks and cracks, knocks, breakages, heart surgery, death. But I'm supposed to be a tough kid. I'm supposed to be a tough kid. I'm 58 years old myself right now. And I've already been broken. I'm worse than a childhood fairy tale about Humpty Dumpty. About an egg cracked all over the place that a kingdom's worth of idiots can't even put together with crazy glue and duct tape and chewing gum. My thing right now is whether or not I'm finding physical items to get rid of my pain or not. But how do we get rid of the spiritual? How do we get rid of that pain that we have inside? When emotional is tied into the spiritual directly. How do we get rid of it? How do we manage it? How do we deal with it? How do we look it in the eye and just say, I accept you. I accept you. I have to live with you for the rest of my existence. Then maybe one day or one time in eternity, I'll let go of it and be free of you. Until that time, you're my crutch. So I have to deal in this world with the crutch and survive with it. But other people don't want to deal with it. They don't want to deal with it, Darryl. I talk to a reverend all the time about things like this. So if I happen to slip out saying, Reverend, I'm sorry, I may send this one over to the Reverend anyway, because it's necessary for me to talk about this. This is my crutch. This is my way of dealing with it. The spiritual aspect, the spiritual warfare we keep talking about, the decisions, the moral decisions we make, whether or not we're going to be falling back on our old patterns or we're making new patterns to fall back on. We're making the moral decisions whether or not if we're going to be not allowing the lousy solutions that we've already made to control us, dude. And that means the spiritual warfare we have inside, the good and evil. But the thing is, sometimes the lines get so blurred, I don't even know what the hell is going on. So sometimes I have to go outside and get a barometer or a mirror and look at myself. I got to see if I am the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I got to see whether or not I am Frankenstein or the Frankenstein's monster. The problem is they're two and the same. We talk about the physical. We talked about the chemical addiction. We're talking about the absolute need that our body puts out because it wants to have that euphoria feeling all the time. But there's a limitation that our body can only deal with, like stress. We put our bodies through so much stress. We put our heart, our literal pumping organ, into that situation where we're constantly demanding more and more. In a situation we require more action, more thought, more brain stimulation. We need something to figure out a way to get past a problem. We get nervous, we get anxious, we get frustrated, we get angry because it's not there. We can't think of a way out of it. Why isn't it there? We're turning into the green monster of ourselves here. We're turning into the Hulk ready to rip things off left and right without having the intelligence. Screw the intelligence. Let me get to it. Ah, boom. Turned into a Marvel nut job. It's so good with the coffee this morning. I still got it diluted. And I have to. I also have to get more chemicals into my body. Gatorade, anybody? I need more. I need more and more. The sugar effect that we have. You're dealing with alcohol. Our pleasure centers are fixated on the sugar because it is a simple carbohydrate that we derive energy from. But so much of that chemical has a detriment to our body. Heard of diabetes? Death by diabetes? Yeah, my family. Directly and indirectly. And I'm joining them on that one. I kid you not. Or I just may get splattered by something, or my brain may explode, or something like that. But we're dealing with the damn disease that affects us one way or another, affects our decisions. Our brains can't figure it out, so we got to do something stupid. We're trying to figure out our emotions, and we're still doing something stupid. When it comes down for the spiritual warfare, that's a different story altogether. We have to have an outside entity to help guide us in this one. The reason why we have the higher power concept in the first place. The reason why some people actually turn to religion as a higher power. A belief in a force, in an entity with a lot more wisdom than what we have, that we can rely and depend upon to get us through the situations. And we still have to depend upon ourselves. We're still doing the physical work. Well, we need the moral guidance. And sometimes we'll get it when we least expect it. Did this kid actually get it? No, he didn't. The kid that you talked about in the video that you found, he didn't get it. What about the ones who are doing the can? I'll call it the can. They're doing the Ready Whip. We're dealing with the whipping cream, or they call it the whippies, because they want that euphoria. The chemical starts, but the need is in there. We know this, Darryl. We know this from our own personal experiences and from the stories we've heard growing up. Yeah, if you've been to the 12-step halls, you know it. You hear the different elements from different people on how your disease is progressing and how your recovery needs to be strengthened. But we cannot give up on this. We cannot lose sight that every day is a reprieve. Every moment is a reprieve. If we are not going for what the damn disease wants us to do, it's a reprieve. We thank the higher power and move on through life. Spiritual warfare is still there. But because we rely heavily on a power greater than ourselves that can restore us to a level of somewhat sanity there, paraphrasing it, we deal with it, we cope, and we move on. I had talked about in my last video about Tremadol Motrin and how it affected me a great deal. And it scared the hell out of me because I wanted it. But I was afraid of it because I knew what the pathway was. It scared me so much to be out of control like that. Because I always wanted to be in control. I didn't want this damn shit to happen. What happens? I ended up in 12-step. I damn to get killed by the damn disease. It almost threw me out in the middle of a rush hour out there. And without hearing a message, subtle but necessary, telling me that I had to call home, I called home. And that night, I was in a meeting hall. That night, I talked to two friends. The next day, I identified. And thus the journey began. I have to remember that. I have to be reminded on that one. I have to tell my side of the story. I have to tell it because if I don't, I'm dead. Plain and simple. These kids don't know. They're starting out. They're being stupid. But there is a need. A need to rush. A need to escape. A need to get away from the pain developing that they don't know how to identify. But they know the chemical rush. They want it. It's escape. It's escape. They can't deal with their pain, but they need the escape. And when they get the escape, they're free. They're free. They're free from the pain. They want more of it. Icarus puts the wings with wax, and he's free, and he's flying in the air with his wings. And then he does this stupid. He head towards the sun. Ah! When we write up our stories a long time ago, we're talking about ourselves one way or another. Said before, I'm a storyteller. I read some of these stories. I watched a lot of movies. I'd seen themes repeated left and right that put me into an emotional tizzy that I had to keep talking to a therapist about. And still do. It's gotten to the point where I've got an addiction for the therapist, for talking to a therapist about the situation. More like me constantly doing many audio recordings, talking about my life, talking about things that matter, talking about addictions, talking about you. About you, Darryl P., of the Artist in Recovery. Talking about my therapist, talking about something. Talk, 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 talk. Because when I was a kid, I didn't talk as much. I was quiet. I was a guy, maybe in a topic I could go crazy on, but I felt like I was hindered. I was hindering myself. I knew stuff. I wanted to talk to people about stuff, but I never had the chance. Or didn't give myself personally the chance to do so. I enclosed, capsulated, trapped myself, barricaded myself. I put up the wall, I put up a barrier. Shit, I buried myself in concrete if I had to. And yet, yelling, scream at the damn thing, pounding it out. Why did I put this thing up in the first place? I have a story to tell. I want to tell my story. Silent on the outside. But inside the head, still screaming it out. Let me talk! Let me communicate. Let me live. I see the stories. I live through the characters in the stories. I live their lives. I see their lives. I want to become part of their lives. My imaginations pull me into their lives. Pull me into an existence. And I deal with the existence. And that becomes the more imperative. That becomes the more imperative thing for me to deal with on a constant basis, is that. It's scary. Because I can't tell you how many places I've gone in here. Different worlds explored, different scenarios happened. I grew up, had kids. I fought demons, monsters, aliens, fought along with people and things. I wrote things down, both of my stories in here, but also in paper. I lived adventures just by sitting or by walking to different places from point A to point B, and my head's in a story. Is it addiction, or is it part of my nature? Was it detrimental, or wasn't it? Was it real? Well, nothing else manifested, so it's got to be in the head. And what scares me is sometimes I came close to death in my head. But did I come close to death in the real world here? I don't know. And it scares me when things like that happen. Because I'm not quite sure when borders are crossed. And what becomes what was fantasy, reality kicks in. I deal with a portion of it of dealing with pain all the time. I deal with my pain on a constant basis. I deal with the spiritual, the emotional, manifested into physical. If my spirit is at peace, I don't have to bother with the emotional or physical. But my spirit is in turmoil, and I deal with the physical manifestations. There are things out there physically that we can use to get rid of it, the physical manifestations of it. But how do you deal with the chemical? How do you deal with the emotional? You screw around with the chemicals. That's how you do it. But is it enough? So how do you solve the problem of the soul? This is where religion and philosophy comes in. This is where belief comes in. The dependency upon a power that we don't understand, greater than our own understanding is, greater than anything else we know and recognize. Yes, there are religious aspects of it. There is a spiritual foundation in there that has to be built one brick at a time, one stone at a time, and also filler in it. Building a road. And it's not done overnight. We want it to be done overnight. We want. And one of the things we learn about the spirituality is we have to learn patience. Sometimes it's the patience of a lifetime, or sometimes it's less than a lifetime. But how do you how do you identify the lifetime, the span of it? In what term of time do we use? These are the things that usually would float around in my head. And the reasons why I keep talking about it on recorders and video. I'm not a guru. I am not an expert in anything. My mind is just wandering a bit. I'll have dreams of going to different places that look half built, halfway things, and yet they function. I've come close to death in my dreams. A lot of fear, a lot of terror. A lot of things that scare the hell out of me because I don't want to deal with them. But how does this deal with a chemical solution to everything? It doesn't, unless I allow it to happen. I stay away from the damn doctors because I'm afraid they're going to kill me with their damn poisons. Medication for some, poison for another. In a way to get rid of a damn pain that I needed to get rid of a long time ago. Almost puts me in a set of addictions that I didn't want to deal with in the first place, but I'm not suing anybody for that. I'm the one that took the damn thing. I'm the one who made the choice. How do you get rid of a back pain and discomfort? There are meditative techniques. There are acupressure, acupuncture. Oh, I hate needles with a passion on that one. There's yoga. There's stretching of the muscles and mind exercises. And just sitting around and just doing nothing just only increases the entropy and the effect of me breaking down, you feeling everything. We need to be moving. We need to be constantly stretching ourselves one way or another. We need to take responsibility for our own recovery. I'm not blaming it and I'm not putting it on anybody else. I was taught a long time ago. I'm responsible. Me. I have to hold myself accountable, transparent, and responsible. If I'm not, I can't blame somebody else for the damn decisions or results. If I allowed somebody else to take care of the damn thing, I had to make the choices. I have to do these things for myself. So the kids taking the drugs and they think they want to get high. No, they want to run and hide. They want to run in fear. They don't want to deal. They want to cope. They don't want to face. It's too damn dark and scary. I had old-fashioned doctors kicking me in the ass. I had my mother kicking me in the ass on some occasions. I loved her still fiercely to this day. You had old-fashioned values a long time ago that we had to deal with, we had to face and fess up to. We had to face our pain. We had to face the fear. And sometimes I've allowed that fear to grow too much that I still have to be reminded of that. And then being reminded how much I hated the damn thing in the first place. But this is how I'm going through life right now. This is my stories. This is what's going on through me. It may not be simple. It may not explain everything to people. And you know what? I really don't give a rat's ass. This morning, I'm coping with a lot of emotional crap I'm dealing with. I'm dealing with the decisions that I make that affect the lives of me and my dog and maybe everybody else around me that I don't even realize. The decisions I make, the choices I make, have consequences. Think of a Japanese Zen garden, guys. A Japanese Zen garden. You ever seen one of those static ones? If you go to an active dynamic one, look at a still pond, dump a rock in the thing, and you see the concussive waves. Our Earth is that kind of machine. Every time it has an earthquake, we have repercussions happening from those damn aftershocks. To put it in geologic terms at that point. But for me right now, I got to deal with what is. And what is right now. So I have to look and I have to realize and I have to understand. I am in charge of my life. But I have to have counsel for it as well. How to deal with my emotional, how to deal with the mental, how to deal with the physical. But I'm the one who still has to be accountable, transparent, and responsible for it. It's taken me years to get that philosophy down. Simple as it is. Kids don't know until they get their asses kicked on this one. And it's not just by the parents. It's by life itself. And they don't want it. They take their roofies. They take whatever things they got to get the chemical high to run and escape. Because they see the other adults are doing it. Why not them? Let's get chemically high. You're screwing around with your damn pleasure centers. You're screwing around with your damn your neurological systems, your nervous system. You're dealing with your internal organs. You're screwing around with your body so much you don't even realize it. You don't care. You want that chemical flood going through you all the damn time until you're going to need more and more of it. And you don't even realize how deadly the damn stuff is until you're dead. We mortal ears cannot hear the spiritual. Otherwise, we'd be deaf all the time and going madness. Because there'd be too many of these damn idiots screaming their heads off throughout eternity. And the one word anguish coming out of him is, why? You should have looked in the mirror and asked yourself that one. That being said, I'll talk at you later, Darryl. I'll talk at you later, my friend.